What's going on, guys? A long time no see. We are doing the new Big Cheeto Power Rankings in the NFL. Obviously, this is post-draft, pre-training camp. Let's dive right into it. All right, starting at number 32, this is no surprise, I don't think, to anybody that watches football. I have the Denver Broncos. They've been a hot mess since Peyton Manning left with no quarterback. They reached at number 11 and drafting Bo Nix from Oregon. He's already pretty old, too. He's not like just super young prospect. They signed Sean Payton a couple years back. I just don't think that he's the old elite head coach he was when he had Drew Brees. And then also on the defense, they lost a huge one in Justin Simmons at free safety. A lot of people kind of, around the NFL that in videos I've been seeing have been kind of downplaying what a safety does as far as value on the team. I think the safety is right next to his importance to that middle linebacker, kind of reading defenses and just kind of calling out plays. So I just don't see the Broncos do have a weak division. Aside from Kansas City, but I simply don't see them getting more than 4 wins this season. Number 31, I have the New England Patriots. They did draft Drake May at number 3 overall. I don't think, though, that should have been the quarterback they took. His footwork is very sloppy. Now, you obviously, with good coaching, can fix that. Also, they don't have a true number 1 receiver. They do have Juju Smith-Schuster. I know they did just get that rookie, and I'm blanking on his name right now. That is kind of doing really well, at least in the rookie minicamp, but I'm not going to classify him as a true number 1 until I see it. They have Gerard Mayo as a new head coach. I don't know how I felt about that one either. I get he's like a Patriots, ex-player, kind of went up through the system with Belichick. But I don't know. I think there was some better options on the market when you got rid of Belichick. And then also they're in a pretty rough division with the Bills, Jets, and the Dolphins. I just don't see them marking any wins really, other than like maybe one here or there against them. This is another 4-win team, but I have them above the Broncos just for the simple fact that I think that their quarterback, if you put in Nix or you put in Drake May, I think Drake May has a bigger upside to him. And at 30, I have the New Orleans Saints. Listen, they're just old, man. They're ancient. It's like you're putting the legends of yesteryear on this team. They still have Derek Carr. I don't think he is what he was, and when he was at his best, I think he barely cracked it being a top 10 quarterback. They still have Cameron Jordan. I mean, he's elite. He's going to be until he retires, but he is getting there. And I think they still have Davis, Demario Davis, their linebackers. So they're just old. Even Kamara, I don't think he's ever produced a 1,000-yard rushing season. They do benefit. They might get some extra wins here and there just being in a bad division overall in the NFC South. But I don't see that happening. And then also Dennis Allen's on the hot seat. I've yet to see a head coach, maybe once in my lifetime, where they're on the hot seat and they turn it around and keep their job for a long time. At 29, I have the New York Giants. I want to like the Giants, man. I really do. But they kind of bobbled and fumbled that Saquon Barkley situation, letting him go to not only, not on their team, but go into a division rival in the Eagles. And also they decided to pay Daniel Jones last year, I believe it was. And he's really not a quarterback worth that, in my opinion. He can't stay healthy. I think he's missed 17 games, I believe it has been, since becoming a starter. And I just, without having an elite quarterback, I just don't see you winning games in the NFL at this point of how it's played. They did improve that O-line, though. They brought in Jermaine Lumion, I think is how you say his name. I can't say he's an right tackle for the Raiders. And then they also brought in John Runyon from the Green Bay Packers. He's a solid guard with some center flexibility in there. So that's what they need, especially with their center last year getting hurt. However, I will say in the draft, I agreed with their decision to stick with Daniel Jones and go grab a playmaker in Malik Neighbors. You lose Saquon Barkley, so now you need that playmaker. You're paying Daniel Jones money, so it doesn't make sense to pay Daniel Jones this contract and then also pay another quarterback first-round money. It just didn't make sense, especially at 6. None of those quarterbacks available, aside from maybe J.J. McCarthy, in my mind, warranted a overall 6 pick, and that's because J.J. is only 21 years old, and you can really kind of build for the future, but you're paying him that first-round money, which I just didn't see the Giants needing to do. And then they did bring in Brian Burns. Yes, they lost Saquon, like I mentioned, and then Xavier McKinney, but that pass rush they brought in with Burns, pairing that up with Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence, is going to be nasty in New York. Here's one that might shock people having them this high, and even though we're at number 28, is the Carolina Panthers. I think that with them adding Deontay Johnson and Xavier Legette, that gives Bryce Young, who had no weapons last year, 2 solid weapons. And then they also improved that O-line. They brought in guard Robert Hunt, and just to name one of them. And then this is year 2 for Bryce Young. Bryce Young last year, we have to kind of forget that that was even his rookie season. Some could say even this would be his rookie season now, just for the fact that they had so many holes on that team, trading all those picks to get him. Now they did lose Brian Burns. That's going to be pretty hard to replace, so we'll see how that goes. But they do benefit, once again, being in the NFC South, having a weak division, and I think they'll honestly sneak some games past maybe the Bucks, and possibly even get a sweep of the Saints. Now I think they'll split with the Falcons, but I could see them being better than what people are anticipating this year. I could see them maybe going for 6 wins at max, maybe 7. And at number 27, I have the Los Angeles Chargers. Listen, I love Jim Harbaugh. Obviously, I'm a U of M fan. Go Blue. He did wonders there. I mean, their first round pick and taking Joe Alt wasn't a sexy pick, but it was what was needed. Yes, they don't have any weapons for Justin Herbert this year. It's going to be a rough year, but they're in rebuild. I don't think Chargers fans need to panic. I do think with them picking up Alt, it helps them with Slater on one side, Alt on the other. And then they have Justin Herbert. Listen, Justin Herbert in my head is a top 5 quarterback, no questions asked. So even though you have no weapons for him to throw it to, he's still going to make something out of nothing. So I don't think, obviously you guys aren't going to have a stellar season. You'll be lucky to hit 6 or 7 wins, but you guys are going to get a good draft next year. And honestly, I think this is just a prediction here. I think if you guys are sitting early in next year's draft and Mason Graham's there from Michigan, I think you're going to get another one of Harbaugh's boys. So like I said, though, I'm going to have the Chargers at 27, only for the simple fact they're in a rebuild, no weapons on offense. Number 26, I have the Arizona Cardinals. Listen, I do like Arizona. I think Gannon did a tremendous job last year, especially missing Murray for pretty much half of the season, if not more. He had the Pastronaut doing work out there. They did bring in Marvin Harrison Jr., which I think he's going to be a very good All-Pro receiver. I don't think he's the best receiver that's going to come out of this draft, but I do think he's going to be a perennial All-Pro. Obviously, you have Kyler Murray, and then you have Trey McBride, who's a decent tight end. I'd say he's sitting at probably a top 10 tight end in the league. The problem I have is that the Arizona Cardinals lost Marquise Brown, and I'm not sure if they still have Rondale Moore. Actually, I don't think they have Rondale Moore anymore. I think he went to Atlanta. So you really have no deep threat as of now, or a known deep threat. So what are they going to do on offense? We'll sit here and see. I know they upgraded some of their offensive line through the draft, so I'm excited to see that. But you're also in a tough division. Listen, playing San Francisco, playing LA, playing Seattle, regardless of how good they are in that year, that division plays each other really well. So that's why I have them at 26, mainly because of the division and then them just lacking a weapon here or there. But I do think they are in the upward trend, and I think give them another year or two, they could be contenders. Number 25, I have the Las Vegas Raiders. Listen, I love Antonio Pierce. I love the culture that the Raiders have. I do not like their ownership group. I think they swing and miss on almost every draft pick that they ever do, especially when they had Mayock and Gruden out there. Terrible. When Al Davis was making the picks, terrible. So I think maybe they can start proving us wrong with the picks that they're starting to do, but they don't have a good track history to build a team yet. They have a bridge quarterback. Now, Gardner Minshew wasn't All-Pro last year, so we'll see if he can prove me wrong. I love the Minshew mania, so I'm hoping he does. And he has one of the better receivers in the NFL in Davante Adams. They have Jacoby Myers. And then I think they're going to end up doing a 2 tight end set. I don't think they're necessarily going to have that 3 wide receiver set a lot of times, because they have the 2 tight ends in Mayer and Bowers. So I think that's pretty good for them. And what we'll see, though, I think another question as far as the defense, they have Max Crosby, an elite defensive end pass rusher, and they added Christian Wilkins. He's going to stuff up that middle for him really well. So hopefully those 2 additions can kind of get them a couple more wins. I don't see them making the playoffs. If they do, it's going to be at number 7 in the wild card, mainly for the fact they're not going to be at the Chiefs for the better record there in the division. So once again, number 25, the Las Vegas Raiders. And at number 24, I think this is a shock. I think a lot of people actually have them ranked worse than I do. I have the Washington Commanders. Listen, I think Jaden Daniels was a great pick for them, especially with them adding Cliff Kingsbury. He's an air raid guy, so you're going to need a mobile quarterback to kind of get out of the way because you're not going to be running the ball a lot, getting those defenses off of them. And I also think with Dan Quinn, ex-Falcon, or I'm sorry, a Falcons fan here, ex-Falcons coach. Listen, Dan Quinn could not coach offense to save his life. That's why when Shanahan left, we fell apart. But he can coach defense. So I think when you have him leading that defensive charge, obviously they have a defensive coordinator, but he's going to kind of be able to kind of help and come up with things defensively with that good Washington defense. And then you have Cliff Kingsbury, who's going to kind of cater the offense to Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson. Then you have a power back in Brian Robinson Jr. I think they're going to get a little bit more wins than what people are really thinking that they're going to do. There are going to be growing pains with Jaden Daniels as expected. He's a rookie. That offensive line is a little rough still. But overall, I think that they're going to have an improvement this year, especially because they have a super weak division. Other than the Eagles, and I'll get to the boys and the I'm sorry, the boys later, but that division's weak, man, when you take out Philadelphia. So I think they have a chance. That's why I have them at number 24. And number 23, and this is where I'm going to start getting the guys that know me and watch these videos. Oh, it's because you're a Falcons fan, but it's not. I really think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be here at that 23 spot. They brought back Baker Mayfield, which I think is good for them. They do have Mike Evans, but he's starting to get up there in age. And they also have Chris Godwin. Once again, though, also starting to get up there in age. If I'm not mistaken, he was hurt quite a bit last year, too. Maybe it was the year before, but you know, he's been battling some injuries. He's getting up there in age. But they can rely on a good defense in a weak division. Other than that, I just don't see very many improvements that they made, which is why I have them at 23. And at 22, I have the Los Angeles Rams. Now, you know what? I could see them being a lot better of a team, but there's some reasons I have them here at 22. The first one being Aaron Donald, man. That defense relied heavily on Aaron Donald drawing those double teams, even triple teams at times, and he had one of the most elite win rates in both run and pass rushing. So you're losing him. That's gonna really affect your defense. So I want to see how this young defense kind of goes on without having him. And then also you have an aging Matthew Stafford. I love Matthew Stafford, but he's getting there in age. He's had some injuries. He's not that guy that's going to chuck the ball 80 yards anymore. So we'll see how that kind of plays out for him. Now he does have elite wideouts in Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, who was that breakout star last year. You saw Nacua kind of tear up the Lions a little bit in the playoffs. So that's why I have him there. And then also their division's pretty tough. When you look at it, like I said with the Cardinals earlier, regardless of how good these teams are for the most part, they always play each other really well. Then you also have to play San Francisco twice. So we'll see, but I don't see them having a really good year. I think this is going to be a down year for them, especially just because they have an aging playmaker in Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford. You have no Aaron Donald anymore, so we'll see. I do have hope, though. The defense was good last year. Some of their young players, they had a lot of no names and they still played pretty well. So we'll see how that kind of plays out. And McVay is a mastermind when it comes to playing, drawing up offense. 21, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. I am not a fan of the Jaguars, guys. When they first got Doug Peterson as their head coach, I thought that was the play for them. However, he's not done well since he's been there. Choked on some pretty big games. You just signed Trevor Lawrence to a big deal. So I was kind of confused on as to why they brought Mac Jones in. I thought Mac Jones was going to be there to kind of, compete against Trevor Lawrence because he hasn't been performing to what their expectations were of him. So we'll see how that goes. But I do think T-Law is a good quarterback. They brought in Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver, after losing Calvin Ridley, so we'll see. I am a fan of him, though. I think he's a big playmaker as far as just size. He's a physical wide receiver, so that's good. But I think they're going to not benefit for being in a good division. A lot of people are going to be shocked at how good the Titans are this year. A lot of people are going to be shocked at how good the Colts are. And then you have the juggernaut, the Texans. So I think they just kind of fall in that, hey, we're in a decent division, and we're just not playing to what we should be on paper. So that's why I have them here at 21. Number 20, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Listen, quarterback controversies are never good. I can't think of the last time a team went in having two quarterbacks and not sure which one was going to be the starter by the end of the year and then placing in the top 15 teams. I will say the reason I have them so high, though, is because of that defense. Mike Tomlin can coach defenses. He's had this, since Roethlisberger's left, he hasn't had a quarterback. And to be fair, to say that Tomlin was this great coach because he had all these wins early on in his career, well, he had Ben Roethlisberger, who wasn't drafted by Tomlin. So he hasn't proven that he can get a quarterback. And so until he does, I just don't see him being in the top 15. I think the last year for Big Ben when they went 11-0, I think that was just a fluke. Obviously, they got dismantled in the playoffs. But once again, that defense, though, he can coach a defense. So we'll see. They lost Deontay Johnson, though. They brought in Roman Wilson in the third round, I believe, a Michigan wide receiver. Roman Wilson's going to be sneaky good. He's not going to be this guy that's, blazing the defense back for these huge 80-yard catches type of deal, but he's going to be a solid receiver in the NFL. And my biggest question, going back to the controversy for the Pittsburgh Steelers, is will Russell Wilson finish the season as the starter? If you see Russell Wilson finish the season as a starter, they're going to be a playoff team. Otherwise, you have Justin Fields coming in. And I am a fan of Fields, though. I think Chicago should have kept Fields, and they would have saw better results than what they'll see here this season. But, a team never benefits from having two quarterbacks like that. So we'll see, but that's why I have them at number 20. I think the quarterback controversy is just going to be too much for them to come anywhere close to a top 15 after that. Number 19, I have the Chicago Bears. Let's face it, guys. The Chicago Bears and the Dallas Cowboys are the same freaking thing. All they talk about is it's our year, regardless of the team they have, and it's not. Listen, the Bears drafted at number 1 overall, and they took Caleb Williams, who's unproven. I don't think he's as good as what people make him out to be. He was at USC and couldn't even win a division title there in the Pac-12. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's a team game. But when you look at the film, a lot of times he's running when he doesn't need to be. Now, granted, he looks to throw and not to run every time like Fields did. But to me, it's the same thing. Now, it will benefit because your offensive line's bad. But I would be more concerned with the whole Caleb Williams situation and you guys putting your future on him when he's more concerned about committing tax fraud than getting on the field and working out. Obviously, we saw what he was trying to do with his rookie contract, which was denied in the NFL. And then also with your guys' acquisitions, you added Keenan Allen, big-bodied wide receiver. And what I'm about to say doesn't mean that I don't think Keenan Allen's not going to do good for you guys. I think he's a significant improvement for your WR2. But he's getting up there in age, and also he's coming from Los Angeles. That's a warm state to play in. That's a warm city to play in. And you're bringing him to Chicago, where when you hit those winter months, it sucks to catch the ball and it is windy. So it's going to be hard to track the ball deep a little bit. That's why I just kind of don't really see the Bears being up there any more than what I have them here at 19. Also, with the acquisition of DeAndre Swift, I think one thing that Bears fans aren't paying attention to is that he was good in Detroit and he was good in Philadelphia. But there's one thing in common with both those teams, and that is a solid and elite offensive line that he had. So when he's coming to Chicago, he doesn't have that anymore. So we'll see how it pans out. I do think the ceiling for the Bears this season, even though I have them 19, is pretty high, but I see them hitting the floor a little bit more than what a lot of people are predicting. That's why I said the Chicago Bears are at 19. Number 18, I have another NFC North team. I have the Minnesota Vikings. Now, this one, a lot of people won't agree with. I have them over the Bears. I know, but this is why. They have Sam Darnold, who's a pretty young quarterback. He's been in the league forever, but he came in at like 21 years old, I think. So if I'm not mistaken, he's probably sitting anywhere from like 26, 27 at the oldest. And I don't think Sam Darnold is a bad quarterback. I think he had a bad rap being in New York because it's a high media team. You throw one interception, they think that you are the next Ryan Leaf. I think with them bringing in Sam Darnold, and you still have Justin Jefferson, and their head coach out there, O'Connell, is just a mastermind when it comes to offensive schemes. And then they do have J.J. McCarthy, but that is going to end up being more of a like a project. I think that he will be decent in the NFL, but he's only 21 years old. So I don't think you're going to see him on the field much unless they have a terrible year, but I don't see that happening, bringing in Aaron Jones as well at running back, the old Packers running back. And I think their defense will be good enough to get them some wins. They lost Daniel Hunter, but but they did bring in Andrew Van Ginkel. Now, obviously, Daniel Hunter is an all-pro, top 5 pass rusher at the outside, edge position. But I think Van Ginkel is going to be able to hold his own. He'll give you enough productivity to kind of at least not lose games because you have no pass rush. So that's why I have him at number 18. Number 17, I have the Seattle Seahawks. With the Seahawks, I see a low ceiling, low floor. I don't see the Seahawks being a top team. And I can actually see them dropping to a lot lower than where I have them right now, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. They still have DK Metcalf. They still have Tyler Lockett. You still have Geno Smith. He's going to give you productivity. And then you have Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. So I think that they still have a really good offense. And I know that they brought in some defensive players through the draft, and I think they addressed their offensive line as well, which is good. So I have them here, though, at 17. Their new head coach does show a lot of potential. I like him a lot. But we'll see, right? Like new head coaches, it really is hard in your first year to be successful. I think the D'Amico Ryan's Houston Texans project out there is one of a kind, and we probably won't see that in the next 20 years, I don't think. But that's why I have them here at 17, but I would not be surprised if they drop way lower than this. And at number 16, I have the Indianapolis Colts. I am a huge fan of the Colts. I think their ceiling is super high, but I think they're still just a little bit too young. They're going to be held back by the Texans in the division, and then I also think the Titans are going to hold them back a little bit. I think they're going to be a little more sneaky good than what people are realizing. But really, the main question for the Colts I have, and this is why I have them at 16, honestly, as long as AR-15 can stay healthy, I'd give them a top 12, maybe even a top 10 team in the league. You still have Michael Pittman Jr., you have Josh Downs, you have JT, who's just probably a top 3 running back in the league, and you still have a decent offensive line. Quentin Nelson's out there, the ex-Notre Dame alum. So I don't see them being lower than 17 at all, but I think that they have a possibility of cracking the top 10 when the season's finished. I think that they will be a playoff team as well, as long as they can get one win against the Houston Texans and split that series. So we'll see how they go, but right now I have them mid of the pack, 16. Number 15, I have a controversial take on this. A lot of experts are saying that this team is going to be a top 7 team at the worst. I have them at 15, and it's the Dallas Cowboys. I have the Dallas Cowboys here because of their, 1, horrendous offseason, 2, ownership. The ownership, listen, Jerry Jones, I respect what you've done for the game. It's time to kind of hand it off or just let your GMs and coaching staff make decisions and not yourself. I mean, just by looking at it this offseason, it's shown you can't bring in big-name players like you thought you could. You also have CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott going into contract years. They're going to sign Dak over CD in my belief, but I think they should take CD because he's younger and he's going to attract a quarterback, and it helps you if you bring in a young quarterback next year. It'll make him have more confidence rather than giving Dak a young wide receiver and him leave in the next 4 years anyways. And then they also brought in an aging Ezekiel Elliott when the RBs on the market this season were abundant. And they brought in an aging Zeke. So that kind of tells me that there might be some problems in Dallas. You have Mike McCarthy on the hot seat, but I think the biggest reason that they don't do what they did last year is the leaving of Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn is a really good defensive coach. He obviously went to Washington to be with the divisional rival, and I think they actually lost their center to the divisional rival Washington Commanders as well. But with Dan Quinn leaving, you have that elite defense because of scheme, and then they had Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Stephon Gilmore. They don't have that elite game plan scheme guy anymore, so I don't see them going any higher than 15. I think they do benefit from having a weak division as far as Washington and New York goes. They always play Philly well, so I think they'll sneak in one there. I think they make playoffs due to how the playoffs work and like seeding and all that, but I don't think that overall they're anything other than a 15 and lower. Another hot take here, but I have at number 14, the Cincinnati Bengals. The reason I have them here is because they are an overhyped team. And what I mean by that is when Joe Burrow is there and he is healthy, they're a top 10 team easily with Jamar Chase out there at the wideout. However, they lost Joe Mixon this year, and Joe Burrow has proven in his 3 years that he can't stay healthy. His first year he was out most of the season, and then last year he was out most of the season. And you see what happens. They get early draft picks when they don't have Joe Burrow. So until Burrow can prove to me that he can stay in the season long term, I just don't see them being anything other than the number 14 team. Now, it's not all on Joe Burrow. Their offensive line is pretty bad, and they've let him take some big hits, but we'll see what happens. But I have the Cincinnati Bengals in number 14. And at number 13, I have the Tennessee Titans. I know not a lot of people have them this high at all, but I think a lot of people are overlooking that defense that they have. They made some serious acquisitions on the defensive side of the ball, biggest one being L'Jarius Sneed, the cornerback from Kansas City. They also added Calvin Ridley and Tony Pollard onto that offense, so gave Will Levis some more weapons to use on top of DeAndre Hopkins. And then speaking of Levis, he's in year 2. He's going to use a lot of that experience from last year, and he's going to kind of let it go over to year 2. I don't think he was elite or by any means, but I think he actually proved himself pretty well, especially against that game against my Falcons. I was so upset about that one. So we'll see. And then their new head coach, I think he's going to bring some more energy to the organization. Listen, I loved Mike Vrabel. I think it was time for him to go. Their championship window closed like a year or two ago, so we'll see how they build it, but I think they're going to be a sneaky good team at number 13. And at number 12, I have the Miami Dolphins. A lot of people are shocked with this one too. A lot of people have them in the top 5 even, but I don't, because of the simple fact that they lost too much on defense. Mainly, the 2 biggest ones I can think of was Andrew Van Ginkel, and then they also lost Christian Wilkins. And they have an elite offense, but here's why I have them ranking so low: is Mike McDaniel, Tua, Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, Devin Achane, they know how to score, and they know how to score fast. But when you have a bad defense, the best defense with a bad defense is when your offense is on the field, because it makes sure that your defense isn't letting up points. So I think the problem with the Dolphins is that they are going to score too much, and their defense is not going to be able to stay, they're not going to be able to go pound for pound with their offense scoring and then being on the field that much, not letting up scores themselves. So that's why I have them there. Now, I wouldn't be shocked if they go up higher than this, and finish it as a top 5 team, just because that offense is so good. But, as a former player myself, when your offense scores a lot of points and fast, that defense is on the field a lot, and you get tired throughout the season. So we'll see how that plays out. Number 11, I have my Atlanta Falcons. Listen, our offense is ready to win now. Kyle Pitts, Drake London on the outside. We brought in Rondale Moore, so we finally have a deep threat. The Bijan Robinson, we still have Tyler Algier for another year at the power running back position. So our offense is ready. The problem I see with Atlanta is the fact that we didn't address our pass rushing needs. Now, we did in the 2nd and 3rd round. We brought in Ruka Horo from Clemson, and another edge rusher from Washington. Braylon Trice, I think, is who we brought in the 2nd round. But when you had an opportunity to get Dallas Turner as your edge rusher, man, and you guys decided to go with Michael Penix, which I understand the thought process. If we finish good now, we're not going to be bad enough to have a good quarterback draft when Kirk decides to leave. So I understand the thought process, but if that was your process, go with somebody younger than J.J. McCarthy at 21 years old. So I have them at number 11, though, just because I do think our offense is ready, and we benefit from a very weak division in the NFC South. I would honestly say the Falcons, I wouldn't be shocked we get 11 or 12 wins this year. So we'll see how that goes if Kirk can stay healthy. And so that's why I have them ranked there at number 11. Number 10, I have the Cleveland Browns. All I have to say is defense, man. You got Myles Garrett out there, Ward. I think you still have JOK over there in Cleveland. That defense is going to win you games. One of the very few teams we can say if they put up 10 points in a game, they could still get a win. So I really think that Cleveland is going to benefit from that defense. Now, they have 3 things going against them, and this is why I don't have them any higher than number 10. The first one, Nick Chubb. That was a devastating injury. Now, I just saw videos of him doing some squats. Pretty impressive, putting that much weight onto that leg already. So we'll see if it can withstand it. Obviously, surgically repaired. Probably going to be a little bit stronger than what it was beforehand. And then the other one's Deshaun Watson, man. First, I think he should be out of the league. Don't think he should be able to be playing right now. I'm going to get that out of the way here and now. But even so, even though he is in the league, he has not shown us what he was back in Houston. I think he's an average quarterback. I think 15 is as high as I would put him at best. And so when you don't have an elite quarterback in the NFL, we kind of see what happens. So I mean, prime example, the Falcons. We were bad last year, and that's because we didn't even have an average quarterback. So we'll see with the Browns. I do have them at number 10 because of that. But then the last thing I have going against them is that division, man. You have Cincinnati, you have Baltimore, and Pittsburgh. That's a pretty strong division, even though I have the teams kind of rated not very close within each other for the most part. I still think they play each other really well, so we'll see what happens. But Cleveland Browns, number 10. Number 9, I have the Buffalo Bills. I'm pretty sure their window's closed now at being the top 3 team. They let go of Stephon Diggs in a trade. The trade was kind of, impressive to me, the fact that they sent him to Houston. But we all know that realistically, he's probably going to Kansas City after this. They also traded their number 1 overall pick to Kansas City for Xavier Worthy. So I was a little shocked in the fact they did that. But you know what? You still have Josh Allen. You have Doug McDermott. Really, the only question, their defense is going to be a little worrisome, I think, in that division as far as, can they keep up? But the wide receiver core, they brought in Keon Coleman. They brought in Curtis Samuel. But are any of those guys that they brought in going to be a true number 1 wide receiver? I think we'll have to wait and see. But as long as you have Josh Allen, Doug McDermott, you're still going to be in the top 10. Number 8, I have the Green Bay Packers, and man, does it hurt to say that, because I think the 3 worst fan bases in the NFL, I'll say 4, are the Patriots. I think that's the Bears. I think it's the Cowboys, and I think it's the Packers. But the one thing the Packers have that those other 3 teams don't is they know how to draft quarterback. Jordan Love is the answer in Green Bay, I think. Now, the question is here, can he repeat the second half of the season? That first half of the season, everybody in Green Bay was going for his head because he was not winning games. But when he turned it around, he showcased that he can be that elite quarterback and be the next, replacement for Aaron Rodgers, and then even going after that, Brett Favre. So I had the Packers at 8. I also think that they benefit from being in a weaker division. Minnesota, Chicago, and then Detroit. Now, Detroit is an elite team, but you have Minnesota, and then you have Chicago, so that should be an easy 4 wins this season. So that's why I have them there. And then, obviously, the addition of Josh Jacobs. Pretty good running back. I was kind of confused by it because you had Aaron Jones, who isn't as good as Josh Jacobs in my head, but he's still comparable. So I was kind of shocked they brought him in and then let go of Aaron Jones. But regardless, number 8, Green Bay. And at number 7, I have the New York Jets. Now, hear me out. I don't know if they're going to stay healthy. If they do not stay healthy, this will be the last year for Robert Saleh, and they will revamp that whole offense. They're going to get rid of everybody other than Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, I think, to go full rebuild. But for right now, I have them at number 7 because on paper, they are elite. They might be really old, very old, but they are elite. You have Rodgers to Garrett Wilson, Rodgers to Mike Williams, and then you can hand the ball off to Breece Hall. They improved the O-line by bringing in veteran offensive tackle Tyron Smith, used to better known for his Dallas Cowboys days, played in Miami last year, and we saw how that offense performed. And then they brought in guard John Simpson. So overall, I think that they're going to be number 7. I do see them making the playoffs if they can stay healthy. So big question for the Jets there, but that's why I have them ranked at 7. And at number 6, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. Listen, weak division, right? If they have any less than 10 wins this season, Sirianni is gone, and he needs to be. You have a good quarterback, really good wide receivers. You have an elite running back again. Your offensive line, even though you lost Jason Kelce, is really good. In that defense, they did some improvements in the draft. The only thing I'm kind of worried about with the Eagles is all that drama from last year going into the season. It's Philly, man, right? That is a hard place to play in when you're the home team, even. So are they going to be able to kind of cut off last season? This is a new season type of mentality. How do they respond after Jason Kelce retires? And then can Cooper DeJean recover from that injury? Now, I know they had that other corner in the first round. I'm blanking on his name right off the top of my head, but he's going to be good. Can Cooper DeJean transfer to safety? I think that's where he's going to end up moving, is to safety. And then can he stay healthy? And can he rehab from that injury? So big questions there, but I do see them being at number 6. Finally, we have the top five. Top five, number five, give me the Detroit Lions. I wish I could put them higher, and I really think they have the possibility of being higher. But, is this going to be another draft where Brad Holmes had the gem draft with Terrion Arnold? I think he's going to be an elite corner. Now, how early is he going to progress, is going to be kind of the key to Detroit's placement here. But I have him number five because I think he's not going to be super impressive in regards to progression, but I think he's going to be well enough to where they can be considered a top five team. You obviously just paid Penei Sewell, the best right tackle in the league. You paid Amon-Ra, who I think is an elite slot receiver, if they put him in the slot. And then they also paid Jared Goff. Dude deserves it, right? His career was almost over, and he brought a bad team to almost the promised land. So I have the Detroit Lions at five. If the ball would have bounced a couple different directions, maybe we would have saw them in the Super Bowl. But I just think that the four other teams after them, I just think that they unfortunately have just had more proven success. So that's why I have the Lions at five. And number four, it was close between them and the Lions I had at five. But number four, I have the San Francisco 49ers. I really think that if they let this wide receiver contract drama with Brandon Ayuk get to them, I think it could possibly hurt them. This is the last season that they can take advantage of that Brock Purdy contract that they have. So we'll see how it plays out. My biggest concern with them, I think that they are a better team than the Lions currently for the NFC. But for the number one in the NFC, but number five overall, I think that they're better on paper. I think they have proven success. They've been to the Super Bowl, although they can't win it when they face Patrick Mahomes. They can make it. So as long as they don't let any of this contract drama play out to where it hurts the team detrimentally, I think they're going to keep that number four spot. Listen, number three, give me the Baltimore Ravens. All I have to say, Lamar Jackson, John Harbaugh, and that defense. Listen, it's a typical Ravens team, right? Good defense. They're going to have a really good quarterback. They're going to be able to run the ball. I don't see any reason not to have them at number three. The defense is still elite, even losing Patrick Queen. My biggest question for them is, can they rebound? That Chiefs loss was pretty hard on them mentally. I think realistically they could have won that game if it wasn't for the drops that they had in the end zone. And I think it was their rookie that they had last year. I'm blanking on the name, but that rookie wide receiver that ended up being pretty decent for him. Was it Zay Flowers, I think? But regardless, I still think they're a top three team. I think they're going to win that division. And we'll see if they can finally get over the hump and get themselves to the promised land in the Super Bowl. Number two, give me those Houston Texans, man. You got CJ Stroud, DeMeco Ryans. Year one project was insanely successful. They're the scariest team to enter the top five. The offseason they had was insane. They brought in Daniel Hunter, which I think is their biggest acquisition that they made as far as, especially on defense, the edge rusher. And then they brought in Joe Mixon. They had a lot of other acquisitions in there. If you guys want to know all of the acquisitions, it's in my previous TikTok and YouTube videos that I have, just displaying, what they have. But the Texans are number two. And the only reason I have them at number two and not number one in my head is because they haven't won anything yet as far as Super Bowls go. You give me a Super Bowl this year, easily a number one team, as long as they can keep everybody they have, including Stephon Diggs, who I think leaves for Kansas City next year. Honest, is anybody surprised that the Kansas City Chiefs are number one? Listen, they win no matter what. They had a terrible team last year for the Kansas City Chiefs, a terrible team, and they still won the Super Bowl, right? Are they going to be able to three-peat? We'll see. It's pretty hard to do that. But when you have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid there, it's going to be really hard not to. Now, I think some of the things that they should be worried about is the Travis Kelce situation. Now, a lot of people aren't really talking about it, but this is Travis Kelce's getting up in age, right? He did just sign a new contract extension, but this offseason wasn't filled with how he probably normally does, of just train. This offseason, he was touring the world with his new girlfriend, Taylor Swift. So we'll see how that plays out. I want to see if he's able to get back into football mode as quickly as what he should be able to, or what he would have been able to without all the off-season distractions. Now, when I say distractions, obviously the man's entitled to do that. Man's earned himself some time with Taylor Swift, but I just want to see how that plays out. I'm kind of curious to see if he's going to still be this elite tight end, getting up there in age. And then also, I think the Chiefs benefit from having a terrible division with the Chargers, with the Broncos, and the Raiders. So I think until someone dethrones them with everything else going on, and them adding Xavier Worthy, who I don't know if he's going to be as good as as far as possession catches go, but dude's going to be a speedster down or out deep for Patrick Mahomes. So you want to cover in the middle with Travis Kelce. You want to cover those shorter routes with their running backs that they like to do. Be careful with Xavier Worthy because he's going to blow the top off that defense. And that wraps it up for my NFL Power Rankings 1 through 32. If you have any that you agree with, let me know. Disagree with, let me know. I want to get some interaction with you guys. And as always, check out my TikTok. Check out my YouTube pages. And we do stream on Kick. I'll have the schedule posted on that. We try to stream Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. And we do a variety of games. We'll probably be doing some EA College football as well. So hope to see you guys there. Thanks for watching.